So the devotion I wanted to share today while I'm out walking is the next section of Matthew. It says in chapter 2, verse 13 to 23. And the focus is 2:22. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew into the district of Galilee. So Joseph and his family, they flee. They flee from Herod. They listen to the angel, which tells them to take Jesus and go down into Egypt, and then later to come back up and to settle into Galilee. And I just find it fascinating. This whole time, Joseph's following God's commands, going where God is leading him. All these things are happening. He's going down into Egypt. He's coming back up. He can't even go back like to his home. And one line of words just keeps ringing in my head today. God's plan is always at work. God's plan is always at work. I recently had to do an exercise with a small group I was a part of. And in this exercise, they wanted us to think of the 6 most impactful, influential moments in our life. Things that were the highest of highs, the great celebrations, and the lowest of lows. I thought about the time where I was kind of basically homeless, was living with my brother, and it didn't end well, and we ended up having to leave the home we were in, and I had to go stay with some friends for a couple nights while I figured out what to do, and I also got fired in the same week. And by the end of the week, a new job had been offered because God's plan was always at work. I trusted God, and I was just going to go wherever God led me. And so in those moments, I prayed, God, I don't know where I'm going to be living next week. God, I don't know where I'm going to be working next week, but you are the way maker. So God, make a way. And God did. See, the thing is, God's plan is always at work. That's always been true in my life. I can think through the entirety of my life, all of the highest highs and lowest lows, all of the best moments and all of my worst, most stupidest, horrible moments, the stupid decisions I've made and the stupid decisions made to me and against me, the things that have both happened despite me and the things that have happened because of me. And all of them, God is always present. God is always there. God is always at work. And I find that fascinating. I find that amazing that God's plan is always at work. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and we're all so very different from each other. We've gone very different paths in life. We've done different things. We've responded to situations differently. Some really bad and heavy things have happened to all of us, and some really great and wonderful things have happened to us. And sometimes I find it fascinating looking over the life of my brothers and especially my older brother. And I just stop and think of all the times where his life could have been over, where his life could have ended, or he could have been in the situation he was in forever, it seems, but yet God made a way to help him through it, and God protected him, and God guided him and helped him through some really, really heavy times in his life. I mean, times where he was facing possible prison sentences, and God made a way so that charges were dropped and nothing happened. Like, I have seen miracles happen in my life with my family and with my friends where they have been in some of the worst of situations. And sometimes those situations last what seems to be way, way too long. But yet, God makes a way. God's plan is always at work, and it's not always our plan. We talked about that before in another devotion, that our plans, my plans, are not always the best, but God's plans always are. But taking that a step further, even when we aren't in a good spot, or even when we feel like we're not following God's good plan, like God's plan is still, it's always at work. I think about Moses in the desert, and when God comes to him in the burning bush and says, go to Egypt, and Moses has all these excuses. He says, God, I can't do that. I can't go to Egypt. I can't do that. I can't talk to Pharaoh. Who am I to do that? Who am I to go talk to Pharaoh? And Moses comes up with the excuse where he says, God, I can't do that because I'm not a good speaker. I don't have a good tongue. I can't communicate well. And God says, yeah, I know, but your brother Aaron, he's really good at talking. So God says, I've got this plan for you. I'm going to speak to you. You'll speak to Aaron, and then Aaron will be your voice to Pharaoh. And God says to Moses in that moment, oh, and Aaron will meet you on the way. So get going, because Aaron's already on his way to come and meet you. And every time I read that, I just stop and think, God would have had to go talk to Aaron first, or maybe he's talking to Aaron simultaneously at the same time to have Aaron start moving and start going to go meet Moses. Because he says to Moses, go and you'll meet your brother Aaron on the way. Like God already has another plan. God's plan is already working. It's already at work. Before Moses has even said yes or no, God's already putting his plan into action to make sure that God's plan happens. And God's plans are good plans. We don't always see them right away. They don't always happen right away. The payoff isn't always immediate. But God's plans never fail, and God's plans are always at work. I wonder where God might be active in your life. I wonder where God might already be at work and already be preparing you, or already preparing something or preparing a situation in your life that you're not even aware of yet. I wonder where God might already be at work in your life that you can't see right now. Oftentimes, hindsight's 20/20. Oftentimes we have to see with hindsight. Oftentimes we have to wait till we get to the end of the story to see where God was active in the middle. So that's just what I was thinking today. And I just wanted to share that in our devotion today, that God's plan is always at work. And I hope you can begin to see where God's plan is already at work in your life and already at work in your heart, and where God might already be active in preparing things that you're not even aware of yet. If you have some crazy stories of times where God showed up and you weren't expecting it, or you didn't think God was there and then looking back you saw him, I'd love for you to drop it in the comments and share your story with us, and share your story of where God has been active and impactful in your life. Because we don't always see it, but God's always at work. He never stops working. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in our next one.